We all grew up believing that Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher, was a philosopher of the far right. Nietzsche's ideal of the Overman, or Übermensch, has, for example, been equated with the Nazi ideal of Arno Breker sculptures and with the Hollywood Superman. But Nietzsche, who died in 1900, 1 year after Hitler was born, had very peculiar visions of such higher men. Nietzsche's attacks on Christianity, declaring God dead and calling for the abolition of Catholic morality, and for the overturning of all Western values, however, have each laid the foundation for the modern-day transliberal LGBT circus cult. Nietzsche's ideas have shaped the modern left far more than the modern right. To find clues about Professor Nietzsche's true intentions, we must look no further than to his interactions with some of his male students, such as when he suggested to a pupil, after a lecture he gave in Basel, to go to Italy together. The young man, embarrassed in front of his class, stammered that he couldn't go, and Nietzsche never spoke to the pupil again. It gets more explicit. Traveling Italy by himself at age 38, Nietzsche mentioned in his diary a menacing attack of desire when the lonely man embraces the first man to come his way and treat him as a precious gift from heaven. To his friend Paul Ree, he wrote, "I had a kind of unrequited love for you." And to childhood friend Erwin Rode, Nietzsche wrote, "It fills me with profound dissatisfaction that we cannot live together. We are virtuosi on an instrument that other men cannot and will not listen to, but which is for us the source of the greatest enchantment." What kind of instrument? Of course he meant his phallus, because Friedrich Nietzsche was a faggot. His entire philosophy served merely to justify his desires. Here then, Nietzsche caused confusion by writing frequently in a style that later appealed to right-wing nationalists. Wherever Nietzsche wrote in his books of free spirits, Übermenschen, or higher men, in actuality, he meant gays and cross-dressers. Nietzsche thought that the Overman, like himself, should transcend simple people's heteronormativity. Like many afflicted by his condition, it is likely that Nietzsche felt intensely superior about his degenerate nature, for it presupposes an extreme narcissism. Indeed, homosexuality is usually a byproduct of having a narcissistic personality disorder. Such people tend to look for mates whose faces are more similar to their own, whereas straight people tend to look for mates who look a bit different from themselves. This is why heterosexual couples complement each other, whereas homosexual relations duplicate each other. And then it gets even worse. Near the end of his book, Zarathustra, there was supposed to be a chapter called the Ass Festival, referring to the animal, i.e. a donkey. Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung, in his extensive analysis of Nietzsche and his work Zarathustra, remarks on page 1492 of this massive tome, "And when he became insane, Nietzsche produced the most shocking erotic literature. It was destroyed by his careful sister, but Professor Overbeck had a glimpse of it. And there is plenty of evidence of Nietzsche's pathological condition. According to Jung, the ass represents a symbol of voluptuousness and claims that Nietzsche also knew about this, Nietzsche being a philologist. And this theme returns in other poems by Nietzsche's hand. It isn't too far-fetched to figure out why Nietzsche's sister had to delete this story about Übermenschen having an orgy with donkeys. Nietzsche, by his twisted logic, believed that Europeans needed such festivals in order to become superior. I conclude that Friedrich Nietzsche was a perverted and mentally ill man whose writings belong in the realm of the far left. He was a morally depraved communist, not at all supportive of nationalist health. Though he may have felt smugly superior about his condition, it disqualifies his works. Nietzsche conceived his Übermensch not as a blue-eyed hetero Superman, but rather as a brown, transhuman, transgender demon, namely transcending the boundaries of gender, nationality, and race, the exact opposite of what our movement stands for. Nietzsche's sister and others began attaching Nietzsche posthumously to the far right because they intended to corrupt the healthy Christian morality from within and pervert it into what the lesser clowns now practice at their pride parades. Indeed, the modern pride parades are Nietzsche's ass festivals come to life. What bothers me is not the content of Nietzsche's sickness, but rather the insidious deception by which liberal degenerates have tried to infect the right with it. We need to set the matter straight, so to speak, and dismiss this freak of nature, Nietzsche. After all, our people's strength is inborn. We don't need to become Superman to better ourselves. We just need to do away with the communist anti-culture in order to stay healthy and strong.